With the American elections coming up, we want to understand exactly what it is that Americans living in Taiwan are thinking about, what kinds of issues matter to you, and especially what you think it might mean for the future of U.S. and Taiwan relations.
But I think relating to Taiwan, I think some of the big issues are, I think, like the Foreign Policy Act. I think especially between the two straits, I think most Taiwanese, that's what they're most worried about.
I think that especially like national security between in Taiwan and also the foreign policy that the United States has with Taiwan is going to be really like critical. And also I think looking at the economic aspect of U.S. and Taiwan relations as well.
So I definitely think that foreign policy is a big topic that I'm looking at very deeply with this election. I think that the United States in general has a big role to play economically in the global system, and it seems that we're pivoting towards another phase of isolationism. Americans are really concerned about what's going on at home and not really paying too much attention to what's going on outside, and I think politicians are following suit, which is kind of, I think it's a little bit regressive. So I'd like to see more open-minded foreign policy in general.
As we all know, Taiwanese semiconductors are a huge part of the world's economy. So what kinds of things, for example, we saw during the Biden administration, there was the Chips and Science Act, which put some limits on foreign investment into the U.S. or as well as foreign projects happening there. What do you think that this election could mean and the next presidency could mean for the tech industry, both here in Taiwan and for the world? Liam?
So I definitely think, American politicians are looking closely whether or not they want to admit it at Taiwan's tech industry, right? It was mentioned, I think, it was mentioned in the debate between Trump and Harris. Directly, Taiwan's name was dropped, I believe, by Trump. So definitely something that they're thinking about, but maybe avoiding talking about too much because of the cross-strait tensions. I'm kind of getting a little bit tired of the idea that the only reason to protect a democracy in Asia, people's ability to self-govern would just be to protect investments or technical advancement, because that advancement won't last for forever. I would like to see a president who values Taiwan as its own full three-dimensional nation and the platform for innovation rather than the innovations, the products of that innovation only.
But I think Taiwan, I think also thanks to its technology, semiconductor company has really put itself on the map. So it's almost kind of like a global soft power or this soft influence where the U.S. needs to make a decision, whereas in the last couple of decades it was petrol. And we're seeing a shift, potentially away from petrol and into electronics and semiconductors.
I hope to see whoever the next presidential candidate is to start treating Taiwan more like a country, not just a business that can make a product for the world. Even though the semiconductors are hugely important to the global economy, it would be kind of good to just not only focus on that, but other areas of what Taiwan can contribute to the world.
Some people wonder if the United States is acting with its relations with Taiwan's best interest at heart, or if it's more of a self-serving kind of situation because of their own benefits that they receive from having protected Taiwan or having worked with Taiwan, selling arms to Taiwan, and also being able to, reap the benefits of the semiconductor industry. What do you think about that?
I think the U.S. has always played like a global leadership role in these decades coming, and I think whether it's the best interest of either country, as we've seen, their influence has caused certain problems and conflicts. So maybe the U.S. is obviously trying to continue its power and influence, but maybe it is to also help the surrounding allies. We're seeing Japan, Korea, as they don't have a actual force, or Japan actually, but I think most surrounding allies, they also rely on this influence, that the Western influence that the U.S. has in this area.
I definitely feel like it's self-serving on the part of the United States. I think that any type of military assistance, whether it be equipment or training, all of those things are really meant to be a bargaining chip or maybe some type of strategic outpost or presence in this region. I think that the U.S. looks at Taiwan as a very strategic position, and most of the Pacific in general is a strategic region. I think that we should avoid, everywhere should avoid over-reliance on the United States, especially given the previous Trump presidency and then recent revelations about actions during the first Trump presidency administration. Trump is not above using bullying tactics or protect, if you do what we say and we'll protect you, or even charging people for protection, much like a political machine or even a mob boss. So just given his track record in this particular election, that's something that's definitely of concern to me. I think that the Biden administration has kind of shifted back towards this at least superficial concern over protecting democracy in the region, but I still think it's a little bit self-serving, and I think that the Biden and Harris administration are really leaning into the shift towards the attention economy, and so as long as this is an issue that's on people's minds, they want to capitalize on that maybe for the campaign, but I remain unconvinced if they are completely genuine in their maybe expression of concerns.
Yeah, I just want to resonate off of what Liam says. I think, probably U.S. has come out a little seeming self-serving, but what's the next big superpower that's gonna take its place if U.S. doesn't step in? China is just gonna be very dominant, extremely dominant in this whole entire area. And I think with any superpower, obviously they need to be self-sufficient, which at times could seem as self-serving, but they need to assert their dominance.
I definitely feel like a lot of Americans feel the United States shouldn't be always in everyone's business all the time, and maybe a lot of them feel like we are involving ourselves too much in the China and Taiwan issues or with other things like the Ukraine war. So I agree with what Liam said earlier about sometimes it appears like we're doing this for us and not really for the benefit of another country, or that we truly care about the other country and their struggles. But I do think that, like with the Trump administration at least, it was very much transactional in nature, like with what Liam said. So a lot of that will probably not translate to like truly caring about the well-being of a country. It's mostly just like how we can benefit from each other. And I hope to not see that so much in the next administration, so that is something I'm also concerned about, yeah.
If there were to be some kind of a conflict with China, I want to know, what do you think about Taiwan relying so heavily on the U.S.?
I think this over-reliance on the U.S. is not healthy. I think we all have to have our own contingencies and understand that, hey, what if this happens? Are we just going to wait and see if someone's going to come in?
I definitely think that there is some sort of like idea that the U.S. will come and save Taiwan in case China attacks, which I think is not really a good mindset to have. I do agree that we shouldn't always rely too heavily on the United States, and I say that as an American. I'm not even so certain that the U.S. would come to aid Taiwan if there was a crisis such as that.
I think it's kind of dependent on whatever the prevailing political winds are at the time, that whether or not any type of intervention would be sent by the U.S. in case of emergency. I think we're kind of in a situation where the United States is claiming this, protective identity, like, oh, we'll protect you because you're a democracy and we're a democratic nation. But we see it's mainly in economic fields. They don't want to directly acknowledge, like the Biden administration is not necessarily too forthcoming with its support to Taiwan, but we do see some signals like Pelosi's visit, for example, coming from the Democratic Party, that there's shifting and changing within that undertone.
A YouGov study showed that in Taiwan, 42% of Taiwanese people supported his presidency, as opposed to somewhere around 30% who were supporting Biden at the time. So what do you think about that? What do you think when you hear about Taiwanese people who are such staunch supporters of President Trump?
That personally makes no sense to me, because during the Trump administration, we all know he was very hostile towards China, which in Taiwan was seen as like very, a support for Taiwan because he was so hostile to China. But really, that really wasn't support for Taiwan. It was just, all this energy going towards trying to, be tough against another country. And we saw that during the Trump administration, there was so much like inconsistencies in their policy on Taiwan, especially like whether they viewed Taiwan as a country worth supporting or strengthening trade relations. So I really don't understand the support for Donald Trump in Taiwan at all, because he never really did anything to support Taiwan other than sell weapons, which is still something that previous administrations still did anyway. So it really confused me.
And I think Taiwan, we do value U.S. and its global influence around the world, and how it kind of pushes back, because in Taiwan we're so close to China. We're extremely close to China, to a point where they're like flying planes and jets, or even we're like a missile away. And so living under that kind of environment makes you kind of look for help somewhere else.
So they view Taiwan as, democratic China, right? So it's this myth-making that doesn't necessarily represent how most Taiwanese people view or self-identify themselves today. It really ignores a lot of the nuance, the pluralism that exists on this island. And I think that the United States and Trump by extension, uses Taiwan as kind of a bolster to that story.